The night was cold and the battlefield was silent. Smoke still rose from broken machines and the ground was wet with blood. The war between humans and aliens had ended here only hours ago. But the silence was not peace. It was heavy, like a grave. Most soldiers had already gone, taking their wounded, leaving behind only ashes. David, a young human soldier, walked slowly between the ruins. He was supposed to be returning to camp, but something in his heart told him to wait. The stars above seemed sharp and cruel, shining down on the broken world. He could hear the crackling of small fires and the hiss of cooling metal. Then he heard something else. A faint sound, soft and weak, like a whimper. David froze, his hand moving to his weapon. The sound came again, this time clearer, almost like a cry. It was not the sound of a human, and that made his heart beat faster. He followed the sound through the wreckage until he found her. An alien girl lying in the dirt, her body half covered in ash and blood. Her skin was pale silver, her hair a strange dark blue, glowing faintly in the night. Her eyes, half open, reflected fear and pain. She was no more than a teenager, small and fragile, and her breathing was shallow. David's training told him to report immediately. Aliens were enemies, dangerous, not to be trusted. He knew what would happen if the army found her alive. She would be taken, questioned, and most likely, killed. But looking at her, he did not see an enemy. He saw only a dying child, abandoned and broken. The girl tried to move when she saw him. Her body trembled and her lips formed words he could not understand. She tried to crawl away, but she was too weak. Her hand slipped on the blood-soaked ground, and she fell back. A cough of dark blood escaped her lips and she closed her eyes as if ready to die. David stood still, torn inside. One choice was simple: leave her, walk away, forget. The other choice was dangerous, maybe even deadly, but his heart burned with something stronger than fear: compassion. He could not leave her here like this, not when he could help. He bent down slowly, lowering his weapon. The alien girl's eyes opened again, wide with terror. She whispered something. Her voice broken and tears slipped from the corner of her eyes. David shook his head, trying to calm her. "It's okay," he whispered, though he knew she would not understand. Still, he spoke softly, his tone more important than his words. Very carefully he lifted her into his arms. Her body was light, frighteningly light, as if she had not eaten for days. She shivered against his chest, and her faint breath touched his neck. David looked around, afraid someone might see him. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a threat. But there was no one else. Only him and the dying alien girl. He knew he could not take her to the army doctors. They would never treat her. They would use her, experiment on her, or worse. No, he needed someone else, someone who cared for life without asking if it was human. And then he remembered Dr. Keller, the old town veterinarian. She treated animals, strays, anything hurt or lost. If anyone could save this girl, it would be her. David's legs moved quickly now, carrying the girl away from the battlefield. The fires behind him faded, but the weight of his choice grew heavier. If he was caught, he would be branded a traitor. But if he succeeded, he would save a life. And deep inside, he felt this was more than saving one alien. It was about saving something inside himself, too. The girl stirred weakly in his arms, whispering again in her strange tongue. Her hand clutched at his jacket, desperate, afraid. David held her tighter, whispering back, "I've got you." Even if she could not understand, maybe she could feel. Maybe kindness spoke louder than language. The night stretched long as he walked, each step echoing with risk. Every patrol he passed, every shadow he crossed was a danger. But he did not stop. He looked down at the fragile life he carried, and he knew he could not stop. Not now. Not ever. By the time he reached the edge of the ruined town, his arms ached, but he did not let go. The girl's breathing was slower now, her head heavy against him. David's heart pounded with fear, not for himself, but for her. He whispered again, "Just hold on." And as the first lights of morning touched the sky, David made his choice final. He turned away from the military road and headed straight for the vet's clinic. He would not let her die, no matter what it cost him. The road was empty as David carried the alien girl through the dark streets. Every step felt heavier, not just because of her weight, but because of the fear pressing down on him. The army patrols were out tonight, searching for survivors, both human and alien. If anyone saw him with her, there would be no questions, only punishment. The girl stirred weakly in his arms, a soft groan leaving her lips. Her skin felt cold. Against his chest, her faint glow fading like a dying ember. David looked down at her face, strange yet delicate, and his heart tightened. She was young, maybe not much younger than his sister back home, and the thought of leaving her to die like this filled him with anger. He slipped through side streets, moving like a shadow. The ruined town smelled of smoke and death, and broken glass crunched under his boots. David knew every corner could hide a patrol, every open street could betray him. But he kept going, because stopping meant death for her, and maybe for him, too. When he finally saw the small house with the faded sign that read Keller Veterinary Care, relief washed over him. The windows were dark, but David knew the old vet lived upstairs. He walked quickly to the door and knocked. 3 sharp taps, then waited. For a moment there was only silence, and David feared she was not home. Then footsteps creaked on the wooden stairs, and the door opened slightly. A tired face appeared, framed by messy gray hair. Dr. Keller blinked at him, her eyes adjusting to the shadows. "David?" she whispered, surprised. "It's the middle of the night, what?" Her eyes fell on the bundle in his arms, and she froze. The girl's silver skin caught the faint light, and Keller's mouth opened in shock. David quickly stepped inside, before anyone on the street could see. "Please," he whispered urgently. "I need your help." Keller shut the door behind him, locking it tight. Her voice was sharp, full of fear. "David, do you know what this is? That's an alien. If the military finds her here, they'll kill her and you and me." David's jaw tightened. "I know, but she's dying, Keller. They left her to bleed out like garbage. I couldn't just walk away." His voice cracked, desperate and raw. The vet looked at him for a long moment, her hands trembling. She had treated countless animals, patched up strays, healed broken wings and paws. But never in her life had she been asked to save something not of this world. Still, she saw the fire in David's eyes, the determination that left no room for argument. "Put her on the table," she said finally, her voice firm, though her eyes still showed fear. David laid the alien girl down gently on the old wooden examination table. The girl whimpered softly, her strange glowing veins pulsing weakly. Keller moved quickly, pulling on gloves, grabbing instruments. "She's not built like us," Keller muttered, half to herself. "But blood loss is blood loss, wounds are wounds. I'll do what I can." David stood beside the table, watching every movement. The vet cleaned the wounds, stitched where she could, wrapped fragile limbs in bandages. The girl flinched with each touch, her alien body reacting strangely to the tools and medicine. Her blood shimmered faintly, dark, with silver sparks that faded as it dried. David felt his stomach twist with fear. Was she slipping away right in front of him? Keller injected a clear liquid into her arm, hoping it would stabilize her. The girl gasped, her back arching, eyes glowing bright for a brief second. David gripped her hand, whispering, "Hold on. Stay with us." The glow faded, and she went. Limp again, her breathing shallow, Keller cursed under her breath. "Her body is rejecting it. I don't know what else will work." For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the girl's faint breaths. David felt helpless, his chest aching with frustration. Then Keller looked at him, her expression softer now. She might not survive the night. The words cut into David like a blade, but he refused to accept them. "She will," he said firmly. "She has to." The girl stirred again, her lips moving as if trying to speak. David leaned closer, and faint sounds came out, broken, almost like words he couldn't understand, but he heard the fear in her voice, the plea for life. His hand tightened around hers. "I'll protect you, I promise." Keller glanced at him, eyes full of worry. "David, you don't understand what you're doing." If the military learns about this, they'll hunt us both. David looked back at her, his voice steady now. Then let them. I won't let her die, not like this. Outside, the sound of heavy boots echoed in the distance. David froze, his heart pounding. Keller's eyes widened, and she whispered, "Patrols." The alien girl moaned weakly, unaware of the danger. At the door, David reached for his weapon, his body tense. He had chosen this path, and there was no turning back. The knocks came, sharp and commanding, rattling the door. "Open up!" A soldier's voice barked. "Routine inspection." David's breath caught, his mind racing. If they found the girl, it was over. Keller's face turned pale. Her hands shaking, she looked at David, whispering, "What do we do?" David's eyes went to the alien girl, fragile and bleeding on the table. He felt the weight of his choice pressing down harder than ever. There was no more time. He whispered, "Hide her now," as the pounding at the door grew louder. The pounding on the door grew louder, shaking the wooden frame. Each strike felt like thunder in the small clinic, echoing in David's chest. The alien girl whimpered softly on the table, her glowing veins flickering like fading light. Dr. Keller's eyes darted between the door and the wounded girl, panic rising in her face. "Open up!" The soldier's voice barked again, sharper now. "Routine check, do it now." David raised his finger to his lips, signaling silence. His heart raced, sweat dampening his palms. If they searched the room, they would find her and it would all be over, Keller whispered in a trembling voice. "David, we can't hide her. They'll search everywhere." But David's eyes were firm, steady as steel. "We'll find a way." He looked at the girl, fragile and broken, and something inside him hardened. He would not let them take her, no matter the cost. Quickly, Keller grabbed a blanket from a shelf and threw it over the alien girl. The faint glow of her skin dimmed beneath the fabric, but her breathing was still audible. David stepped in front of the table, positioning his body to block the view. His hand rested on his weapon, but he knew a fight here would be suicide. The knocking turned into furious pounding, and finally, the lock rattled. Keller rushed to the door, forcing a shaky smile as she opened it slightly. Two soldiers stood outside, their uniforms marked with dust and ash from the battlefield. Their eyes were sharp, their hands resting on their rifles. "Inspection," one of them said coldly. "We've had reports of alien activity nearby. You seen anything?" Keller shook her head quickly, her voice nervous but steady enough. "Nothing here, just me, same as always." The soldier's eyes narrowed, suspicious. "Mind if we take a look?" Before Keller could answer, David stepped forward, his posture tall, his expression calm. "Orders came down that this area was cleared already," he said firmly. "You wasting time here when you should be with your unit." The soldier frowned, studying him. "And who are you to tell us our orders?" David didn't flinch. "Private David Cross, 12th Infantry. I was reassigned after the last battle. I've been securing this sector. No alien here." The words came out steady, convincing, though his heart pounded like a drum. The soldiers exchanged glances, then finally stepped back. "Fine," one muttered. "But if we find out you're hiding something, it'll be your head." Keller closed the door quickly, locking it again. Her body trembled as she leaned against the wood, exhaling heavily. "That was too close," she whispered, her eyes full of fear. "They'll be back, David. They're not fools." David turned back to the girl on the table, lifting the blanket slightly. Her eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, glowing faintly, then closed again. "She needs you," he said quietly. To Keller, "Don't think about the soldiers, think about her." The old vet swallowed hard, then nodded. "All right," she whispered. "I'll do what I can. But this is beyond anything I've ever done." She moved quickly, pulling open drawers, searching for supplies. Her hands shook as she laid out tools, disinfectants, syringes, bandages. David stood close, his eyes never leaving the girl. Her chest rose and fell shallowly, her breaths uneven, like a candle about to go out. Keller examined the strange wounds across the girl's body. Her skin was tougher than human skin, almost like soft metal, but torn and burned in places. The bleeding slowed, but the internal damage was worse. "She's strong," Keller muttered softly. Stronger than she looks, but she's on the
edge. She cleaned the wounds carefully, stitching where she could, applying pressure where the bleeding threatened to return. The alien girl twitched under her touch, her body reacting strangely to human medicine. Some areas healed faster,
the skin knitting itself back together in strange glowing patterns. Others resisted, the wounds deep and stubborn, refusing to close. David clenched his fists, helpless as he watched. Every time the girl moaned in pain, his chest ached. He had seen soldiers die on the battlefield, but this was different. This was not just survival. It was a chance to do something right in a world full of wrong. Hours passed like years, the silence broken only by Keller's muttered words and the girl's weak breaths. Finally, Keller stepped back, her forehead damp with sweat, her eyes tired. "She'll live," Keller said softly. "For now." David let out a breath he didn't know he was holding, his shoulders relaxing slightly, but Keller's face was still grim. "She needs rest, food, maybe things we don't even have. Her body is different, David. I can only do so much." The girl stirred, her lips moving, and this time the sounds were clearer. Not human words, but close enough that David caught fragments. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly, and she whispered something like, "No die." David leaned closer, his voice gentle. "You're safe now." Keller watched in silence, her heart heavy. She had treated countless animals, patched broken wings and healed wounded strays. But this was no stray, no lost dog or injured bird. This was something far greater and far more dangerous. "David," she said quietly, "what happens when she wakes fully? What if she's not just a child? What if she's dangerous?" David looked at her firmly, his jaw set. "Then I'll deal with it," he said. "But I won't let her die just because of what she is." Outside, the first light of dawn broke. Across the horizon, the night of fear had ended, but a new danger was only beginning. David looked down at the alien girl, fragile yet alive, and knew one thing for certain. His life had changed forever, and there was no going back. The clinic was quiet again, but the silence no longer felt safe. The soldiers had gone, leaving only the faint echo of their boots in the street. David sat near the table where the alien girl lay, his eyes heavy from staying awake all night. Keller moved slowly in the background, cleaning tools, her face still pale from fear. The girl breathed softly, her chest rising and falling with a fragile rhythm. Her skin no longer bled, but faint glowing lines spread across her arms where the wounds had begun to heal. It was strange and beautiful, like watching light trapped inside glass. David had never seen anything like it, and he could not look away. When morning sunlight slipped through the window, the girl stirred, her eyelids trembled, and then she opened her eyes fully for the first time. They glowed faintly, bright silver with flecks of blue, filled with confusion and pain. David leaned closer, his voice gentle. "You're safe. You're not alone anymore." The girl blinked slowly, her lips moving as if searching for words. Strange sounds came out, soft and broken. Not human speech, but then, after several tries, she formed something clearer. "Not dead," she whispered, her accent heavy, her voice weak but sharp enough to pierce the room. David felt his chest tighten, a strange relief washing through him. He nodded quickly. "No, you're not dead. You're safe now." Keller froze in the background, staring at the girl as if seeing a ghost. The vet's voice trembled. She can speak?" The girl's gaze shifted toward Keller, her expression wary, almost afraid. She whispered again, "Human help?" David nodded, pointing to himself. "Yes, human help. Me and her," he added, pointing at Keller. The girl studied them for a long moment before her body relaxed slightly. Her eyes closed again, but she kept whispering words, broken fragments of her language mixed with English. David leaned close, trying to catch every sound. He heard pieces, left behind, weak, not wanted, Each word cut deep into him, painting a picture of cruelty. Keller stepped forward, her voice soft but still uncertain. David, if she understands us, then she can tell us things. Dangerous things. Do you realize what this means? David looked at her firmly. I don't care about secrets or orders, I care that she lives. But inside, part of him wondered, what if Keller was right? What if this girl carried truths no human had ever heard? Hours passed and the girl grew stronger. Keller fed her drops of water, soft pieces of bread, though she struggled to eat. Her hands trembled, her body weak, but her eyes grew sharper with each passing moment, and slowly, her words became clearer. My people, she said haltingly, her breath shallow. They leave me, not strong, broken. David's fists tightened, his voice heavy. They abandoned you? The girl nodded weakly, tears forming in her glowing eyes. Not warrior. Not good, so they leave. Keller muttered under her breath, horrified. They just left her to die. David's chest burned with anger. The aliens had always been painted as ruthless enemies, but he had never imagined cruelty like this to their own. She's just a child, he whispered, his jaw tight. How could they? The girl's voice cut through his anger, soft but urgent. War, not truth, she said slowly, struggling with the words. David leaned in. What do you mean? The girl's eyes glowed faintly as she whispered, Not all want war. Some want peace. Keller's eyes widened, and she glanced at David, her voice hushed. Do you hear what she's saying? If that's true. But the girl kept speaking, her words broken. Humans told. Monsters. Aliens told. Monsters. Both. Lies. Her face twisted in pain, but her voice was steady. War. Made by few, not all. David's heart pounded, his mind racing. Was everything they had been told false? Was the endless bloodshed built on lies from leaders who wanted power? He looked at the girl, fragile yet brave, and realized she carried a truth that could shatter everything. The sound of boots outside shattered the fragile moment. Both David and Keller froze, their eyes snapping to the door. The girl whimpered softly, clutching David's sleeve with trembling fingers. Her silver eyes widened with fear, as if she already knew who had come. Voices echoed in the street, sharp and commanding. Search this area, orders from command, no stone unturned. Keller's face went pale. They're back, she whispered, and this time they won't leave without checking every corner. David gripped his weapon, his mind sharp and clear. He looked at the girl, then at Keller, and spoke with quiet determination. We move, now. Keller's voice shook. Move. Where? They'll see us. David's jaw tightened. Then we don't let them see us. He lifted the girl carefully into his arms again, her body trembling but holding on. Her glowing eyes met his, and she whispered one last word, soft and urgent. Hide. The pounding on the door began again, louder than before. This time there would be no talking them away, no bluffing. David's heart raced as Keller opened a hidden door in the back of the clinic, leading into a narrow passage. The soldiers outside shouted, Open now! And the sound of rifles being readied filled the air. David stepped into the darkness of the passage, the alien girl clinging weakly to him. Every step echoed with the weight of secrets, lies, and danger. And as the door slammed behind them, he knew the truth she carried could change not only their lives but the future of both species. The hidden passage was narrow and cold, the air thick with dust. David moved quickly, holding the alien girl close against his chest. Her faint glow lit the dark corridor, throwing silver light on the cracked walls. Behind them, the pounding on the clinic door grew louder, soldiers shouting commands. Go! Keller whispered urgently, her hands trembling as she pushed David forward. This tunnel leads out behind the clinic, into the alley. Hurry! David nodded, his jaw tight, his heart racing. The girl clung to him weakly, her small hand gripping his jacket as if she feared letting go. The tunnel twisted sharply, every step echoing louder than he wanted. David felt sweat roll down his neck as he listened to the muffled sounds of boots above. The soldiers had entered the clinic, their heavy voices demanding answers. Any moment now they would discover the empty table, the blood, the truth. At last, the passage ended at a wooden hatch. Keller pushed it open, and cold morning air rushed, and they stepped out into the alley, shadows still long in the rising sun. David adjusted his grip on the girl and scanned the street. For now it was empty, but not for long. "Where do we go?" Keller whispered, fear in her eyes. David looked toward the edge of town, where broken warehouses stood like silent guards. "East," he said firmly. "If we keep moving through the ruins, we can lose them." Keller nodded, though her hands shook as she pulled her coat tighter. They moved quickly, slipping between crumbling walls and piles of debris. The girl whimpered softly in David's arms, her eyes half closed. "Quiet," David whispered to her, though his voice was gentle. "We're almost safe." But deep down he knew safety was an illusion. Shouts rose behind them, distant but clear. The soldiers had found the passage, and now the hunt had begun. Boots pounded on stone, voices echoing commands. "Search the alleys, they're close." David's stomach tightened and his legs moved faster. The girl stirred, her glowing eyes opening slightly. She whispered in her broken voice, "They come." "I know," David murmured, his breath heavy. "But we won't let them take you." Keller stumbled as they ran, her old legs slower than David's. He grabbed her hand, pulling her forward, refusing to leave her behind. The three of them dashed into a ruined warehouse, its roof half collapsed. Dust filled the air, the smell of rust and ash thick around them. David set the girl down gently against a wall, her breathing ragged. Her eyes glowed faintly as she whispered, "Hide, hide." Keller crouched beside her, brushing damp hair from her face, whispering softly, "Shh, child. Stay still. Don't make a sound." The sound of boots grew closer. Soldiers spreading through the ruins. David crouched low, gripping his weapon, every muscle tense. His eyes scanned the shadows, the broken walls, the flicker of light through holes in the roof. He knew they had only moments before they were found. Then suddenly, the girl raised a trembling hand. Her palm glowed faintly, silver light spreading. Like ripples through the cracks in the wall, David's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" he whispered urgently. The girl's face twisted in pain, but her voice was steady. "Help, hide." The light spread across the wall, shimmering like water. For a brief moment, the broken warehouse seemed whole again, shadows shifting and bending. The glow wrapped around them, cloaking their bodies in strange silver mist. David felt a chill, as if the air itself bent around them, hiding them from sight. Through the veil of light he saw soldiers enter the warehouse, rifles raised. They searched every corner, kicking debris, shining lights into shadows. One soldier walked within a few steps of David, his boot crushing glass. Near the girl's feet, David held his breath, gripping his weapon so tightly his knuckles turned white. The soldier's eyes passed over them, blank, as if he saw only empty space. After a tense moment, the squad leader shouted, "Nothing here. Move to the next building." The soldiers left, their boots fading into the distance. The silver mist dissolved, leaving the three of them trembling in the dust. The girl collapsed against the wall, her body limp, her glow flickering weakly. Keller pressed her hands to the girl's forehead, worry in her eyes. "She's burning up, David. Using that ability nearly killed her." David lifted her into his arms again, his chest tight with fear. "Then we move. We can't stay here. If they search again, she won't survive." They slipped out the back of the warehouse, moving deeper into the ruins. Every step carried the weight of danger. Every sound threatened discovery. The girl clung weakly to David, whispering one word over and over. "Safe. Safe. Safe." David's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We'll find safe," he whispered back, though his voice shook with the weight of the promise. The ruins stretched ahead, broken towers and shattered streets. But beyond the destruction, there was a chance to keep her alive. As the sun climbed higher, the hunt continued behind them. The soldiers would not stop, not until they had caught their prey. David carried the alien girl and led Keller through the wreckage. Each step forward was a battle, each breath a reminder of the risk they carried. But in his heart, David knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not abandon her, no matter what it cost. The world could call her enemy, a monster, a threat. But to him she was simply a life worth saving, and as the echo of soldiers grew fainter behind them, David whispered to the girl, his voice steady despite the fear. "You're not alone anymore. I'll keep you safe." The ruins stretched endlessly before them, broken towers and crumbling walls like the bones of a dead city. David carried the alien girl close, her head resting weakly against his shoulder. Keller followed behind, her breathing heavy but steady, her eyes darting at every sound. The soldiers' voices had faded into the distance, but the danger had not. It lingered in the air like smoke. They reached an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, its roof sagging and walls cracked. Inside, the silence was thick, but it offered shelter from the eyes of patrols. David lowered the girl onto a pile of old cloth, making sure she was comfortable. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Silver, veins pulsing weakly under the surface. Keller crouched beside her, pressing a hand to her forehead. "She's still burning up," the vet whispered, worry in her voice. "She won't last long without real care, not with how much she's used her strength." David's jaw tightened, frustration burning in his chest. "We'll keep her alive," he said firmly. "No matter what it takes." The girl stirred, her eyes opening slowly, glowing faintly in the shadows. Her lips moved, and broken words slipped out. "Safe?" David nodded quickly. "Safe for now." She relaxed slightly, her body trembling but her gaze steady. Her voice was fragile, but there was determination in it. "Must go. Not stop." Keller frowned. "She's too weak to move, David. She needs rest." But the girl shook her head slowly, forcing her words out. "No time. They come. They follow." David leaned closer, his eyes searching hers. "Why? Why are they hunting you so badly?" The girl hesitated, fear flickering in her silver eyes, then she whispered, "Because I know." David's heart pounded. "Know what?" Her voice cracked, her words slow but clear enough. "Truth. About war." Keller glanced at David, her face pale. "She's been hinting at this since the clinic." David nodded. "Then tell us what truth." The girl's eyes glowed faintly as she gathered her strength. "Not all aliens want fight. Not all humans want peace," she whispered. "War made by few, not by all." Her hand trembled as she reached for David's, her skin cool but glowing. "My people, leaders. They want power, not survival. They leave weak behind like me, not useful." David clenched his jaw, his heart heavy. He had seen cruelty on the battlefield, but this was different. They had abandoned her simply because she was not strong enough. "They left you to die," he whispered, anger burning in his chest. The girl's eyes softened, tears forming. "Yes, left me, but Here's secret." David leaned closer, his voice sharp. "What secret?" She struggled to speak, her words broken but filled with urgency. "They plan more war, not stop, not peace, never peace unless truth shown," Keller whispered, in shock. "She's saying she knows something that could end this war." David's grip tightened around the girl's hand, his voice low but steady. "Then we'll get you somewhere safe, somewhere you can tell your truth." The girl shook her head weakly. "Safe? Nowhere. Only keep moving." Silence fell over them, broken only by the sound of wind through broken walls. David looked at Keller, his eyes firm. "We can't leave her, and we can't stop now." Keller sighed heavily, rubbing her tired face. "You've already risked everything, David. Your career, your life, and now mine too. And for what? For a child we don't even fully understand." David's voice was steady, his words sharp with conviction. "For a life, Keller, and for the chance that maybe she's right. Maybe there's something bigger than this war." The girl's eyes glowed brighter and she whispered, "Human. Kind." David looked at her, confused. "What?" Her lips trembled, her voice soft but certain. You kind. When others not, you save. When others leave. She touched his chest weakly, where his heart beat hard and steady. Good. For a moment, David felt the weight of her words sink deep inside him. She saw him not as a soldier, not as an enemy, but as something rare. Hope. Keller watched quietly, her eyes softening despite her fear. Perhaps, she thought, this child was not just a burden, but a key to something greater. The sound of distant engines broke the moment. David's eyes snapped. To the cracked window, his heart racing. Military transports were moving into the ruins, the deep hum of machines carrying across the broken streets. They're sweeping the area, Keller whispered, her voice trembling. They'll find us soon. The girl's breathing quickened. Her glowing eyes wide with fear, she whispered urgently, Must move, must go east. David frowned. East? Why? The girl hesitated, then whispered, Signal. They're proof I send, humans see truth. David's chest tightened, his mind racing. She had a plan, fragile as it was, and it was their only chance. He looked at Keller, his voice steady. We go east. Keller stared at him in disbelief. Through the ruins, with patrols everywhere? You'll get us all killed. David shook his head, determination blazing in his eyes. No, if she says there's proof there, then we take her. We fight through if we have to. The girl's small hand gripped his tightly, her silver eyes shining with hope for the first time. You believe, she whispered, her voice soft but clear. You trust. David nodded firmly. I believe in you. Keller closed her eyes, sighing deeply, then finally nodded. Then, east it is, she whispered, though fear still trembled in her voice. The engines grew louder, the shadows of soldiers stretching through the streets. David lifted the girl into his arms again, her body light but her secret heavy with danger. Together the three of them stepped into the ruins once more, not just fugitives, but carriers of a truth that could change the fate of two worlds. The ruins stretched into silence as the sun dipped low on the horizon. David carried the alien girl close, each step heavier than the last. Keller followed behind, her eyes sharp. Scanning the streets for patrols, the sound of engines and boots had faded for now, but danger lingered like a shadow. They had walked for hours, guided only by the girl's weak voice. East, she whispered each time David slowed. Signal, east. Her silver eyes flickered with pain, but also with purpose. David tightened his hold on her, his voice soft but steady. We're almost there. Just hold on. At last they reached the edge of the ruins, where a broken communications tower leaned against the sky. Its steel beams bent and rusted, its cables snapped, but part of it still hummed faintly with power. The girl's eyes lit up faintly, a spark of recognition. There, she whispered, her hand trembling as she pointed. Proof. Truth. There, Keller frowned, her voice doubtful. That tower hasn't worked in years, child. But the girl shook her head slowly, her voice certain. Still, alive inside. Signal. Hidden. David set her down carefully at the base of the tower. She leaned against the cold steel, her small hands glowing faintly as she touched the metal. Silver light spread from her palms, flowing into the tower, like veins of fire. The old machine groaned, its broken lights flickering back to life. David and Keller stared in shock as the dead tower began to glow with alien energy. Keller whispered, almost in awe. She's merging with it, like she's waking it up. The girl's eyes closed, her body trembling but her voice steady. Truth, hidden data, records. Leaders lie, both sides lie, must show, must send. David's heart pounded as he realized what she meant. The tower contained proof, evidence that the war was built on falsehoods. If she could send it, everything would change, but before hope could grow, the ground shook with the sound of engines. David spun around, his heart dropping. Armored transports rolled into the ruins, soldiers pouring out, rifles raised. They had been followed all along. Keller cursed under her breath, her voice trembling. They found us, David's jaw tightened as he raised his weapon, his voice sharp. Then we hold them off long enough for her to finish. The girl's silver glow grew brighter, her voice echoing through the metal of the tower. Must protect, must finish, almost. Ready? The first shots cracked through the air, bullets sparking against stone. David ducked behind rubble, firing back, his chest tight with adrenaline. Keller crouched low, dragging the girl's small body further under the tower's cover. The soldiers advanced, their voices sharp with commands. Take them alive if you can, kill if you must. David fired again, his breath ragged, each shot buying only seconds. The girl's glow spread wider, flowing up the tower, climbing its broken frame like lightning. Her lips moved in a chant of broken words, alien language mixed with human syllables. The tower hummed louder, its signal rising into the sky. But then a soldier broke through the line, aiming straight at the girl. David saw it too late, his chest freezing with fear. The shot rang out, but before it struck, Keller threw herself in front. The bullet tore through her shoulder, and she fell with a cry of pain. "Doctor!" David shouted, firing back furiously until the soldier dropped. He crawled to Keller, blood soaking her sleeve. She gasped, her face pale, but her voice steady. "Don't stop, David. Protect her. Protect the truth." David's eyes burned, his chest tight, but he nodded, gripping her hand for a moment before returning to the fight. The soldiers pressed harder, bullets shattering stone and steel. David's arms shook with exhaustion, but he kept firing, refusing to fall. Then a sudden wave of silver light burst from the tower. The alien girl cried out, her voice ringing with power. "Truth sent. Humans see. All see." The sky above shimmered, the tower glowing like a beacon. A signal pulsed outward, strong and unstoppable. Images filled the air, holograms of secret meetings, leaders from both sides plotting, creating lies, pushing, for endless war, voices echoed, proof undeniable. The truth was no longer hidden. The soldiers froze, staring in shock as the images wrapped around them. Some lowered their weapons, their faces pale with disbelief. Others shouted in anger, but none could deny what they saw. The war had been built on lies. David stood over the girl, his weapon still raised, his body trembling with exhaustion. The soldiers hesitated, divided now, uncertain of their orders. The girl slumped against the tower, her glow fading but her silver eyes calm. "Done," she whispered, her lips curling into the faintest smile. "Truth-free." David knelt beside her, his voice soft. "You did it. You saved us all." Her hand reached weakly for his, her voice trembling but clear. "Not me, you humankind." Keller groaned in pain nearby, clutching her wounded shoulder, but her eyes shone with awe. "She's right, David. You saved more than a life today." The soldiers slowly backed away, whispers spreading among them. No one fired again. No one dared. The truth had shaken them more deeply than any weapon could. The war had cracked open, and something new was beginning. David lifted the girl gently into his arms once more. Her body was weak, her glow fading, but her heart still beat strong. He whispered to her, steady and full of hope, "You're not alone anymore. You'll never be left behind again." And as the ruined tower glowed softly in the twilight, David knew this was not just the end of a battle, it was the beginning of peace.